This is the India-England Daily on the final word. We're back. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon for the 5 T20 internationals, the first of which Geoff is going to tell you all about in the space of 30 seconds.
It was a tale of two power plays, Adam. India were 3 for 23 after 6 overs. England were none for 50, and that was pretty much enough to decide it. Shreyas Iyer did make a lovely 67 for India, got them up to 124, but 3 of the England bowlers went for less than 6 runs and over. You can't let that happen as a batting side. The runs weren't enough, and England chased it, only 2 wickets down with 4.5 overs to spare.
Yeah, well done. It was clinical. It was won in the first power play, really. India were 22 for 3, losing 2 wickets in the first 15 balls. Adil Rashid bowling the first over, which was different and a masterstroke, I think. And then to pick up Virat Kohli in his second over for a duck. Kohli, another duck, consecutive ducks in international cricket. We'll come to that in a bit. Between times, Jofra Archer, a wicket maiden. I mean, they smothered India early on.
Yeah, I think it was an ambush, really, because for England to go into a game with such a seam-heavy attack, Rashid was the only spinner. They had so many seam bowling options, including Curran and Stokes, the all-rounders. And yet, I think India weren't really expecting that. They didn't necessarily have a plan about how to play it, because Rashid bowled the first over, which only went for a couple of runs. They didn't want to attack him. Archer bowls a wicket maiden next up with a chop on. And then from there, look, there was 1 over in the power play where Rishabh Pant hit Archer for a 4 and a 6, but aside from that, Mark Wood 2 runs and a wicket from the 5th over, Chris Jordan 2 runs from the 6th over, 6 for 23, and more than the 3 wickets almost. It's only getting 23 off the power play that hurts you. If you're 3 for 50 after 6 overs, you're in the game, but 3 for 23, that's where a lot of the damage was done.
And Mark Wood was a big part of that, going through Shikhar Dhawan at serious pace. We don't always necessarily think about Mark Wood in the T20 form. He's been sort of in and out of the England side in recent times, but his first over, all in excess of 145 clicks. The wicket-taking delivery was 147. He hits 152, and that was the cherry on top in terms of that power play. Wood only went for 20 runs from his 4 overs, so how potent that can be inside the power play. Adil Rashid, the first time he's bowled the first over of an international game, is 174th time playing for England. That's quite remarkable. Jofra Archer, who can be formidable at the start of an innings, no matter what format of the game it is, and Mark Wood at serious pace.
Yeah, and the way that pace surprised quite a few of the Indian batsmen on occasion. Archer also used the short ball well, not sort of the head-hunting short ball, but just up into the ribs around the body, and was accurate there and was hard to get away. I don't necessarily think that the all-pace attack is going to work game after game for England, but it worked on this occasion because maybe India weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
The way that the 11 got assembled is interesting. So Shreyas Iyer played beautifully. We'll talk about that in a second. But the fact that he was in the team, that there were so many politics about who was going to be in the team, that's what every discussion was ahead of these series for both sides, really. Who was going to be there and what job would they be doing? And it was pretty interesting how things turned out.
Yeah, I think that's right. So Shreyas Iyer doesn't solve a question that we've been necessarily asking about India, but these games are as much as anything about preparing for the World Cup. So the scoreline matters. I'm not going to diminish how important these games are in isolation, but it's about building to October. So from England's perspective, I mentioned Adil Rashid bowling the first over. That's a new option that Owen Morgan didn't have, and now he has, and it's worked at the first time of asking. Picking up Virat Kohli reinforces that point. And for India, Shreyas Iyer, I know he gets thought of as a bit of an anchor occasionally, but the way that he played in Australia, now the way that he's been able to play at the first time of asking against England, who are the other serious contender at this stage of the World Cup cycle, he held things together for India when it looked like the wheels were going to fall off.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. But he did it with a bit of silk as well as steel. Yeah. The cover drive off Adil Rashid for 4, gorgeous. The over that he faced from Jofra Archer when he flicked the one away off his legs, and just before that had the rasping square drive away behind point. Then he had that the pull shot to bring up his just after his half century, that flat pull shot for 6 over deep backward square, and even the shot he got out to was beautifully middled.
Yeah.
Picked the slower ball, waited for it, absolutely nailed it, and it took a really good catch on the boundary line from David Milan to get him out off Chris Jordan. So definitely enhanced his credentials last night in that game. But yeah, interesting that setup with with Rohit Sharma rested, so Shikhar Dhawan getting the chance at the top of the order with KL Rahul, who's been sitting on the sidelines for 6 test matches and then lasted 4 balls in the middle once he finally got to go. And then Kohli and Shreyas Iyer as those twin anchors, if you like, pretty quick anchors, but twin anchors in the middle before Rishabh and Hardik Pandya come in as the firepower ahead of the all-rounders.
Yeah, it's funny how we think of anchors these days. Very different to what might have even been 12 or 24 months ago, but Shreyas Iyer able to really go through the gears when it mattered for India, just to give them a score of credibility. But Jofra Archer contributed to putting a stop to that at the end. 1 for 23 from his 4 overs. Sorry, make that 3 for 23 from his 4 overs. A lot of speculation about his role in the England team leading into the series. But a wicket at the start, 2 at the end. Again, at pace. Archer so fantastic in those conditions. We saw that during the Indian Premier League, not being in India. But when the pitch is slow, Archer finds a way to dig into his bigger bag of tricks. He's such a capable player.
Yeah, exactly that. And he likes to have the responsibility towards the end. We saw that with the super over in the World Cup final. But bowling that 17th over, at that point, 3 overs to go, Hardik Pandya in the middle, having got himself in. If he's in full flow, he could add 40 runs in the last 3 overs.
Absolutely.
He could add 60 runs in the last 3 overs if he really got going. And so that was key to get him out in that 17th over, just as they got Rishabh out right at the halfway mark when he was established. So it was interesting that Shreyas ended up with 67 from 48, decent strike rate. But the real triumph for England's bowlers was that they kept Hardik Pandya and Rishabh Pant collectively made 40 off 44 deliveries. But how often would you see teams able to keep both of them to under a run a ball? And I reckon that's where the match was really won and lost, because 3 for 23, that can happen, but you can recover from that if you keep attacking. Rishabh and Hardik weren't allowed to keep attacking. They weren't given enough deliveries to smash.
Yeah, and it meant from England's perspective, they finished their bowling innings holding India to just 124. They removed Virat Kohli for a duck. That's the first time in 475 international innings where Kohli's made back-to-back ducks. So the last innings of the Test series and the first of the T20s. Don't worry, he'll be back. I'm sure he'll be back in fine form by the end of this series. But it's noteworthy that England can go away from this knowing that they can constrict India and get rid of their big guns early on. And that continued through to their batting power play. 50 off 6 overs. Jason Roy and Jos Buttler doing as they can so well. In the case of Roy, Geoff, he had a scratchy 2020, a combination of bio bubbles and injury at different points and not making runs in the 50-over form of the game. But we see here Jason Roy to start 2021, a World Cup year, top scoring with 49 from 32. That's quite important, I think.
It is. I found it a little bit overplayed how much people have been talking about him being out of nick, because really he hasn't played a lot. I mean, since the World Cup final, he's played 8 one-dayers, I think, and in the last 12 months he's played 3 T20s for England, and hasn't made a heap of runs in those innings, but it's been a longish period of time since he made a big score, but it hasn't been a lot of matches. So if there was any disquiet about that, he put that to bed. He did it in the uncomplicated way that he does, just hit everything to the leg side. Took on Yuzvendra Chahal particularly, and that had been a lot of the talk about Jason Roy as a right-hander not liking the ball that spins away from the edge of his bat, but took Chahal down over the leg side as well. And look, he's got that power and that ability, which helped Jos Buttler because he wasn't hitting them so well. He was able to contribute to that partnership, none for 50 in the power play. But Buttler at the top of the order is one that's been talked about a lot, where, I think you're an advocate of you want England's most damaging striker to face as many deliveries as possible. But some people want him down the order. He didn't look particularly comfortable last night. Hit a couple of big shots, but they weren't all. He just looked a bit off in some way I couldn't quite define.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't his most fluent performance, but still he was there for that partnership of 72, which meant that there's no way that England were going to lose. In the end, they both fall before reaching the victory target. But something, it might sound like a small part of this game, but just being able to get through the Akshar Patel initial interrogation. I know that it's a different format, different colour of the ball, but the mental hold he had over them during different players as well for that matter, but the mental hold he had over England throughout the course of the 3 test matches he played, I thought that was quite important. And then Bairstow came comes in with Milan it was Milan then Bairstow at 3 and 4 respectively, to finish the job with 27 balls to spare, to put a real full stop on a fantastic night for England. Even Milan hitting that ball for 6 to raise the victory to win by 8 wickets. His batting average, Geoff, goes up to 54.93. So that was his 20th innings in T20 international cricket. So he technically now qualifies for an average. He's the highest of all time by more than 5 runs. Kohli second on 49, Babar Azam on 48, and Ryan Tenduscarter is fourth on 44. But Milan is the number 1 ranked player in T20 international cricket at the moment, and a nice little red inker there to finish the job wouldn't hurt, and nor would it for Johnny Bairstow either. Just being there at the end and making 28 after having such a torrid time of it when he returned for the last couple of test matches.
Yeah, almost more to the point, just those, 3 really clean hits for Bairstow, the rasp down the ground and a couple in the air that would have helped him feel better as well. I mean, David Malan's got a better batting average in T20s than anyone who's played. There's nobody who's had 10 innings who's had 10 innings or more who's got a better average than him. So even some of the anomalies ahead of him, they're all people who've played 2 or 3 innings or thereabouts. No one's made 300 runs with a better average than him. So he's better than just about everybody in terms of those stats. And finished it off with that red ink as well, which was important. So I don't think there's that much to worry about for India out of that performance. It just looked like one of those nights where it fell away at the start and they weren't able to catch it. It's like when you drop a glass in the kitchen and you're frantically trying to juggle it on the way down before it smashes on the floor. Look, sometimes you catch it, sometimes it breaks. Last night it broke.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. In terms of player of the day, I'm going to go with Jofra, Geoff. I know there's a couple of good candidates, but I think that if you take a wicket in your first over and bowl a wicket maiden in the second of the game, and you can come back and take wickets with consecutive balls at the death, and you can go under 6 and over, you are the reason why England are in such a strong position.
Yeah, I reckon that's fair. And I might throw up Adil Rashid, who in the first 2 of the first 3 overs, he was key. You get the major wicket of the captain, the one that makes the team think, we are in some trouble here. And also, as a Hall of Fame contender, Adil Rashid 1 for 14, didn't get to bowl his 4th over. Where's his 4th over, Owen Morgan? Oh, thanks, champ. Have a rest. Hit the showers, buddy. You're all done.
I wonder whether he'll keep bowling with the new ball in the next game. It's going to be fascinating to watch the way that Morgan sets up with his bowlers through the series. My contender for the Hall of Fame has to be the Johnny Bairstow headbutt. I know that Washington Sundar wasn't too happy about this, but I suppose Bairstow's got form with headbutts. But on this occasion, it wasn't his own instigation. I don't think there was an awful lot he could have done about that.
It was definitely accidental. So David Malan gets a leading edge back down the wicket, and Johnny Bairstow standing at the non-striker's end. He didn't move, and it just hit him clean in the back of the helmet. He'd turned around to try to get back into his crease in case there was a run out. And Washington was furious as though he'd been obstructed from taking the catch. But Bairstow was in the way, but he didn't move into the way. He was just standing there. So, the laws about obstructing the field say that you can't move in the way of the fielder, but there's nothing to say you have to get out of the way of the fielder. And I don't think he even could have if he wanted to, because he was looking the other way and was as surprised as anybody to get sconed by the ball. So, quite interesting that Washington was ready to get punchy about that one. That was quite entertaining. There was also Rishabh Pant's reverse sweep off Jofra Archer. Come off it, mate. We saw him do it to James Anderson, but you're talking about 20 kilometres an hour slower at that point. I know he's a very good bowler, but still, it's less dangerous to life and limb. This one was Rishabh getting a ball that was outside the line of his leg stump and then turning the face of the bat and reverse sweeping it with his eyes closed at the point of contact. I picked that up on the replay. Eyes shut. He didn't want to know about it if he missed. But that is up there with the most extraordinary cricket shots I've ever seen.
Yeah, what a fantastically talented player Rishabh Pant is. I'm sure we'll see him explode between now and the end of the series. We'll be with you throughout the course of it on the Final Word India England Daily. If you enjoy what we're doing, click subscribe. Visit our Patreon, patreon.com/The Final Word, and listen to our podcast. If you want to hear a bit more about obstructing the field, you can hear that on our most recent edition of Storytime. That's in the podcast feed at all the usual places. Geoff, we might put a full stop on it ourselves here. This has been the Final Word India England Daily. England victorious by 8 wickets with 27 balls to spare. We'll talk to you again in a couple of days.